Hi, Jeremy Young, Atomos CEO, here to explain to you about the Ninja V new user interface. We shipped it about 2 or 3 weeks ago, and it's been seriously the most amazing response from all the amazing customers that have bought the product, so thank you very much for buying it. We have neglected to inform you of some of the changes to the user interface. If you are an Atomos customer, we now have Atomos 10. And it's significantly different. Not only did we have some challenges on the 5-inch screen from the 7-inch to make it work on that size, we also had some changes to the workflow that we'd been polling customers, looking at how people worked, and then trying to evolve the way 4K HDR was delivered. ProRes Raw helped us do that, and we're now, we think, in a better position to explain to you how to expose correctly for high dynamic range. And it's not easy. I think anyone who's tried to do it follows the rule of 2 stops above and I'll be okay. Well, we've got 4 or 5 stops for you to use. So we want you to use that. And this user interface will help you achieve it. So here is a very similar signal on both the GH5 and the Ninja V. That's not how we want to expose. We want to show you what it's going to look like on an HDR TV, preferably the latest TVs. But if you need to deliver to an HLG TV, which is kind of halfway house, and I'll explain that soon, or a normal SDR TV with a little bit more range in it, we can show you how to record for that. And then you take it into your Final Cut and an amazing Apple Mac system and finish it. But on the setup, it's super easy, but a little bit different. So first of all, I want to point out that we've reduced the color saturation of all the buttons on the screen. Why did we do that? Because with HDR and with video, especially 4K HDR, you need to see the image in all its glory. So our buttons were distracting you from seeing that. And on the 5-inch, it became even more so. So we knocked back the saturation and gave you black and white buttons so that we weren't the main color and brightness profile, the image was, which is kind of what you want when you're shooting for clients. So if you just take a look at the new UI, all of it looks very similar. We've still got our Rec Play Monitor Edit, we've moved that to the left. So I flick over to Monitor, and you can see I've got all my normal user interface. You can see I've got this scrolling bar, which shows you everything at once instead of having to go through menu system, so that's a new improvement on the Ninja V OS. So I've got my luminance parade on here, and you'll notice it's not blue anymore. It's white, and that's to detract from it distracting you from the image. Across the top, I have all my normal settings, but I've also rearranged them a little bit for you. So let me walk you through that. So the first thing is, everything is as it was, however, you've got it not as saturated in color. All the settings are over here on the side. You bring those up. I can change my focus peaking settings, yellow, whatever, zebra, LUT settings, they're all there, but you can still see the image. So if I shut that, I can just adjust them in one tick. I can change my UI here for all the settings that I've got. So that's one thing. If I want to get rid of the overlay, I just touch the middle and it goes away so that I can just see the image. But while I'm doing settings in monitor mode, this all comes up. If I take off monitor mode, I just see my recording settings, and guess what? My HDR waveform is sitting right there in Luminance Parade. And that allows me to see what I'm doing. I've also got my time code. I can go to any of these settings, plus I've got audio. This is your shooting page, which we never had before. So this hides everything because you're not adjusting anything. When you come in and you go, I want to shoot, then everything pops up for you. Well, that sounds intuitive. We think it is. The first thing you want to do is set up your input. I'm in Vlog and vGamut, coming from vGamut Lite, coming from this camera. So I touch on my input, and guess what? All the settings come up. The first thing I want to do down here is camera output. The camera output is a log output. I'm not in Rec 709, I'm not shooting the normal video output of the camera. I want to capture all of that brightness range for HDR. And just for those of you who are new to the Ninja V, you need to enable log on your camera to capture wider brightness range, which allows you to deliver in HDR later. HDR just means brightness. So I'm going to turn on my wide brightness range, because what HDR allows you to do, what log allows you to do, is not only finish for HDR, but it also allows you to cleaner SDR, which I'm going to show you in this demo. But I need to turn that on because my camera output is a log output. So it says, is your camera output a log output and HDR? Off means it's not, which means you're in Rec 709 land all the way, our normal SDR land. Or I say, yes, it is. So now it bonks into the mode that the camera's giving it, which is Panasonic Vlog vGamut. Perfect. I'm ready to roll. My input is set correctly. The reason we've moved it to the input page and not on the monitor page where you can adjust it is we don't want you screwing up that adjustment, because that will change the way that your image is processed inside the unit. So you need to make sure that we know which log setting you're coming from. So we're in Panasonic, V-Log, V-Gamut. If you're in Canon, C-Log3, Cine Gamut, then use that. Just make sure it's set up correctly. So my input's correct. Let's get out of there. Oh, just while I'm in there, you can go to output, you can go to record, file, the level meters and the audio meters are all there for you to adjust in one place. That's not the case from previous, so we've improved that. So now my monitor, nothing's changed on the monitor. Why? Because we've added this new monitor page here, or a shortcut to the monitor page. So if I touch on that, it shows you native. What I'm representing is the native video coming in, which is the vlog, which looks washed out just like it does on your camera and just like it does on our screen and on this screen. Now I've got native. The first thing I'm gonna do is go Rec 709. Now, everyone's gonna say, well, that doesn't look very good, does it? That's because the line here is 100. 100 nits, 100 IRE is what we have been shooting in. This much range, not very much. Your sensors today, depending on the log curve and the capturing, in RAW it's a bit bigger, but log gives you basically identical, is much wider. So I've got this much range. 709, log. 709, log. Are you getting it? I hope so. This is 709, this is log. This allows you to go HDR and map down to SDR. This allows you only Rec 709. That's it. You can't go up here. So let's capture up here. The tools, Final Cut's amazing at it. Many packages are amazing at it. You can do anything if you go up here. So let's go up here. That's what we're all about. So this is Rec 709. Doesn't look that good. That's because, so normally I would stop down or aperture down, and I'm adjusting shutter speed here to get the image into a Rec 709 image. Now that looks pretty good, wouldn't you say? Not bad. The problem is, when I zoom in, to a 2:1, noisy. Why? Because I've throttled the silicon by reducing the light coming into the sensor, and it can't get the voltage to give me a digital signal. So what I want to do is not that. I want to go back, I'm going to zoom back out, and what I'm going to do is raise up above 709. And every cameraman on the planet is looking at me going, what are you doing? This will kill everything. Look how much you're blown out. Everything's crazy. I'm going to show you something pretty cool. We've given you not the slider, and this is where some of our current customers are a little bit confused, and we do apologize for that. Sorry for confusing you, but we wanted to simplify it. The slider is SDR Rec 709. The Atom HDR slider, the Atom HDR engine is still inside the Ninja V. We're just trying not to make it too complicated. So if we went a bit too far, we apologize, but I think you can understand this. This end of the slider, this end, is Rec 709. The normal slider would go between 709 through HLG, which is about halfway up the log curve, right to the end of the log curve, which is HDR on the old slider. But what we've called them now, and when we actually made that slider, there were no standards. No HLG, no PQ, and 3.5 years later, now there are. So we want to map to those standards. And what each one gives you, this is Rec 709. When I hit HLG, boom, guess what? It looks like the 709 stop down, but I've actually captured not the full range of the log curve, I've captured around halfway. This is not 100 IRE, this is 1200 IRE. The maximum on this camera is around 2000 to 2200 IRE, or 2000 nits in PQ. They're equivalent. 100 nits equaled 100 IRE, 1200 nits, 1200 IRE HLG, 2000 nits, 2000 IRE is PQ, and that's what we represent here. We represent 2000 PQ because that's what our monitor is capable of. Mapping. We're a 1000 nit display, but we can map it into a 2000 nit. So that's the maximum we think we can deliver on this screen. As the screens develop and we go to 2000 nit and we go to 5000 nit or we get higher contrast ratio, then we can actually map more, and that's the future. But right now, we've worked really hard to give you the best that you can get in a 5-inch monitor at 1000 nits using our Atom HDR engine. So the Atom HDR engine is still inside, so let's go in and see what that looks like. HLG and then PQ. Now PQ, I'm mapping a bit more, so I can actually go up a little bit. Now you can see we've put strategically this light that we normally wouldn't put in a shot. And the reason we're showing this is, if I go back to 709, it starts, the disaster starts here, it follows all the way along here. But if I go to HLG, then I can see a bit more. If I go to PQ, now I've got even a little bit more latitude. The difference is, for example, this Panasonic V log light is 2000, 2200 around. C log 3 is at 3200. S log 3 is at 3200. It's a longer range. Doesn't mean the sensor's actually that capable right up the end, but in certain scenes you could map that. We're showing you a representation, people. This is not the recording. The recording is log, the recording is raw on our Shogun and Sumo. You do not need to see everything on this screen because we are not baking it in. What you see is pretty much what you get, but you have complete control post-production because we don't want to limit you at the camera. That's what Atomos is all about, giving you the creative flow in the edit and in the post-production. So let's go through that again. 709 blown out. Log from the camera, I'm converting it. HLG looks much better. I've got a pretty good range on my waveform. So this waveform is not a 709 waveform, 100 nit, 100 IRE. This is a maximum of the log curve waveform, which in this case is around 2200 for V-log light. So let's say I understand that I'm in this V-log light, I'm converting it around, and now I'm just playing with my exposure to make sure that I fit into the HDR range. Because of course, you can always blow out above the HDR range, but see, this bit is really important because I'm bringing the brightness out of the noisy area of the sensor. And that gives me clean SDR, but perfect HDR at the same time. Who doesn't want that? Now you can offer your clients, I don't know, how much do you charge for HDR? I'd be charging $5,000 extra. But that's up to you. And I'm sure there's going to be competition in the market, especially if you're using Atomos products, because we've been offering it to you for a long time. But you can deliver that. So what I have here is, I'm going to stay in HLG because that's 1200. I feel like that's a nice halfway house. If I wanted to go max, I could go to PQ and I'd get a little bit more. Actually, I might do that. Let's stay in PQ and go a little bit higher. There. That's where I would end up. Looks really nice. I might even come down a stop. Looks pretty good. So what would happen if this was a slider? Well, what we'd be doing is we'd be sliding between Rec 709, HLG, and PQ. But I want to give you the standards so that you know what is going to be delivered to the TV in, what YouTube's going to read it and play it back on the computer in, what it's going to look like in Final Cut, what it's going to look like on HDR monitors that you buy. And I think that's probably the best way to go. I am interested to hear if you want the slider back, where we can give you the nuances between Rec 709 and HLG and PQ. If you want that, go to Atomos's Facebook page or Instagram and please tell us what you want. But I think you should be in the standards, but that's just me. I'm a techie guy, I'm not a shooter, and I'm always in awe of the creative stuff that you guys do with our products, so keep doing that. All right, so I'm gonna stay in PQ. So just to recap, my input, if I go off, I'm just in log all the way, but I do want my input to be log. If I go Rec 709, I'm blown out. That's to show you that you are overexposed for just an SDR production, so don't do that. HLG, looking pretty good. PQ, a little bit more range on this camera. If it's a wider range camera, a bigger sensor, bigger pixels, then I'd have a bigger range for you to actually work to. And the slider would just go from SDR through to HDR, exactly like the buttons do, but we've just locked it for you to the standard. So I hope you can understand that, and we hope that that's beneficial for you. So now that I'm in here and I'm shooting, What happens when I want to zoom in on the people? So I've got this light in here, and what I'm going to do is just move around and zoom in. And you know what? Still maintaining that wonderful dynamic range of the image, and I'm absolutely ready to record. And I probably should have hit record a little bit earlier as we zoom out. And no matter what my range is, I've still got a big highlight here, but I'm capturing all of that range. Whereas this would be an absolute disaster in Rec 709. Now everyone's, oh my God, did you change your recording when you did that? No, I didn't, because we are talking about the monitor only. We're not talking about the recording. The recording is Vlog, the recording is ProRes in log, the recording is ProRes Raw, done deal. DNX, Cinema DNG, all good, no matter which product you have. But what we're showing you here is a Rec 709 representation to say, if you want to shoot only for Rec 709, then that's what it's going to look like. Remember, if you shoot HLG or PQ, you can map back down to 709 and it looks amazing. That is the new user interface on the Ninja 5. I'm recording away. Thank you to our team here for their wonderful modeling. Thanks, guys. Very good. Showing off the Ninja 5 on the couch. Happy shooting, Ninja 5, Atom OS 10, changed, but still the same Atom HDR.